Hey, welcome, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. My name is Dennis Brown, and this is my weekly Freight Broker Bootcamp live coaching, training, Q&A. So this is what we're doing, okay? We're doing a live Q&A. I call it an Ask Me Anything session, all right? Hold your questions, though. I don't have a specific topic that we're going to train on today, so I figured I'd dedicate maybe a half an hour or so to do some live Q&A, questions that you might have about freight broker startup or freight broker sales or marketing or rating or finding your niche or using load boards or any of the different skills or strategies that you need to use in order to start and grow a highly successful freight broker or freight agency business. So that's what we're doing today. Before we dive into that, hit me up in the comments with the city and state you're logging in from. I will try to do some shout outs real quick. And then from there, we're going to jump into the Q&A. Okay. So hold tight on your questions. Do not type your questions into the chat box yet because I will miss them. But hit me up with the city and state that you're logging in from. I'll try to give you some shout outs. We've already got Carl Gillis from Bethlehem, Georgia. Welcome. Welcome, Ricky, as always, from California. Welcome, Corey from Montana. Welcome, Rad Freight Brokers from Mountain View, California. Harvey from Russellville, Arkansas. Welcome. Thank you guys for being here. Again, I'm going to do some quick shout outs and then we are going to join. We're going to jump into the Q&A. Hold your questions for now. Okay. Christopher from Morristown, New York. So we got people logging in from all over the place. That's awesome. Carlos from North Carolina. Michael, hold your questions. Hold your questions until I say go because they get lost in the feed, okay? And I definitely will not remember your question because I'm going to get probably 50 questions. You got to remember, I stream this on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So I get questions from all those different platforms. So when they come up on my screen, that's what I see, okay? What do we got? RLB Nation from LA. Awesome. I don't know if that's Louisiana or LA. Okay. Los Angeles. Cool. We got a lot of people coming into the stream, coming into the live. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. I know you're very busy. Money Tree from West Palm Beach, Florida with a question mark. RLB clarified it's Los Angeles. All right, perfect. Yeah, so we got a lot of people coming into the feed. We're going to do a live Q&A. It's called an Ask Me Anything session for a reason because you can ask me anything, literally. And I will do my absolute best to answer those questions. Now, here's the facts. I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything. I'm not omniscient. But I've got over 20 years of experience in the freight brokerage industry. I've done over $200 million as a freight broker. I've trained over 10,000 students to become freight brokers and freight agents over the last 15 years. And so I do have a lot of experience in that. But if I don't know the answer, I'll try to point you in the right direction. Okay? That's my promise to you. That's what we're going to do today. TMP Hustle from San Antonio. Welcome. Scott from Plymouth Meeting, PA. Anthony from Temple, Texas. So we got people from all over, as usual. Usually we have people from other countries like Colombia or Mexico or Australia or the Ukraine or somewhere in Europe, Canada. We got people from all over the place. So appreciate you guys being here. One more minute and we're going to start the Q&A. Hold your questions. Michael from Minnesota. Awesome. Hold your questions. I'm going to say go in about 1 minute, and then I'm going to let you know, and I'm going to take the questions in order, and I'll do my absolute best to try to get to everybody's questions today. But if I don't get to your question today, don't feel bad. I'm going to try to come back into the feed later this week. Maybe I'll be able to answer it in the stream or in the feed, in the chat. If not, come back next week. Every Monday, I do these free live trainings, and I almost always do a Q&A at the end. Okay, today we're specialized in a Q&A. We're focused on Q&A. This Ask Me Anything session, I usually have a lot of fun with it. I really love the Q&A part of these weeklies. Sometimes coming up with a topic off the top of my head that we're going to talk about is challenging because I have over 300 freight broker training videos, all free freight broker training videos on my YouTube channel. So I have talked about a lot of different things when it comes to becoming a successful freight broker or freight agent. So you guys feel free to check that out. Just go to YouTube, search Freight Broker Bootcamp, Dennis Brown, whatever, right? All right, so let's get started, guys. Hit me up in the comments with your questions. I'll do my best to try to take them in order. I know they'll kind of come fast and furious. Again, whether it's Freight Broker Startup or Freight Broker Sales, try to be specific about your questions, right? If you say, how do I get customers? It's pretty generic, right? I'm going to be a little cheeky and tell you it's called sales, right? If you have a specific question, let's dive into that, right? That's really what I want to do. And sometimes it's easier for me to refer you to a resource like a video or a blog post or a free report that I've already put together. So a lot of times I'll try to do that because then you can take it with you, right? And you can digest it. So that's where we're at. Hit me up with any questions you guys have. And in the meantime, your price of admission, notice there was no credit card for you to come in here and ask me questions, all right? I'm going to be totally upfront with you. When I did one-off consulting and coaching, I charged $1,000 an hour. That was my minimum, and I had a minimum 5-hour deal, right? So this is a live Q&A. I'm not charging you for this. Here's all I ask. Here's the price of admission. Hit the like button, share the stream. That's it. If you're on LinkedIn, hit repost. If you're on Facebook, share the stream. If you're wherever you're at, just share the stream with your network, with your friends. If you don't have any of those, just text 3 people the link to this and let them know about this free training and Q&A that I do every single week. We get most of our people through some sort of a referral or some sort of an online review or something along those lines. So we appreciate you guys. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you guys engaging. So let's jump into some questions. I'm not seeing any questions right now. You guys must be sleeping at the switch because normally when I ask for questions, I get crushed. So where are we at? What do we got? The last comment. Can everybody hear me? Are you guys hearing me, seeing me? Did I lose you? Did I lose you somehow? I hope not. No, I think everything's good. Okay, Michael is the first one in. He says, is most of the success in this job just grinding and keeping cold calling day after day? Okay, Michael. So it's a good question, and I appreciate you asking. I'm going to be very upfront with you. This is a very sales-oriented job, particularly when you're a startup. It's no different than if you were a real estate agent or you were an insurance guy or you had some sort of a software product or you had some sort of a service. It's very sales-oriented. Okay, particularly in startup, because the most important part about startup is getting your first 5 or 10 clients and generating cash flow, right? You need to start generating cash flow before the bills, right, pile up beyond your financial resources, right? So yes, it's sales intensive, particularly at the beginning. But here's the cool part, all right? The cool part is, after training over 10,000 students, building my own brokerage, knowing tons of other brokers, here's the reality. If you want to make 6 figures as a freight broker, right, you only need about 5 or 10 decent clients, average clients. I'm not talking about, Pepsi. I'm not talking about US Steel. I'm not talking about multi-billion-dollar brands. I'm talking about companies that can give you 1 or 2 or 3 shipments a week, typically pretty small shippers, and you can build a 6-figure income with a small customer base. So the cool part is once you get, say, your first 10 customers, most of your time is going to be spent supporting those customers, doing rates, consulting with them, providing solutions for them, covering their loads, moving their freight, tracking their freight, right? So it transitions from a heavily sales position over into more of an operational position. Now, if you want to scale your business and you want to go from 0 customers to 10 customers to 100 customers, well, then you have to continue your sales activity. A lot of times that happens where the owner will either hire some operations person to free up time to allow them to continue to sell, or they'll bring on a salesperson, or they'll bring on another broker, they'll bring on some sort of support, right? So that's really the fundamental behind it. It doesn't always have to just be cold calling, right? There's a lot of different ways to get clients. I think cold calling is one of the best, even though particularly for startups. But what I teach in my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, again, that is, just so you guys know, the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator is an 8-week live coaching program where I take this piece of my brain, I transplant it into your head, and I teach you my favorite sales strategies, tactics, tools, but most importantly, the entire system that I use to do over $200 million as a freight broker. And so that is a coaching program. It's typically sold out, but you can get on the wait list. It's absolutely free to get on the wait list. The program is not free. It's not cheap. But if you get on the wait list, you'll get all the details and you'll be the first to be notified when new spots open up. Okay. So probably many of you are already on the wait list. So I hope that answers your question. I tried to do a little bit, give you a little bit more of a peel back the onion a little bit more. Let's see who's next. Hope that helped, Michael. Good question. Rad Freight Brokerage, regarding the shipper quote, do you suggest I grab some lingo from the shipper broker agreement and add it to the notes section? No, I don't. I'm not sure what you're referring to as far as lingo, but freight quotes with most shippers. See, there's two forms of freight quotes. There's a bid package where they're going to give you maybe an Excel spreadsheet, or they send you to a website where you're going to do a bid, right, on a bunch of lanes. That's more of kind of an RFP or a bid, okay? The other side is more spot market, and it's a little bit more ad hoc. They might ask you for 1 lane or 2 lanes or 3 lanes to give them some rates. Most of those take place via email, right? It's pretty informal. You don't need to create this big, crazy document that says freight quote and all this different stuff on it, right? Most of that's done via email. If they agree to your rates and they decide to send you a shipment, they're going to send you approval digitally. They're going to say, okay, great. Here's the load. It picks up on Friday. Here's the pick. Here's the drop. Here's the rate that we agreed to. Here's the, all the details of the load, including the rate. And then at that point, you guys have a confirmation. You take all that details and then you build it into your TMS and you move that load, right? So it's pretty informal, right? I don't think you need a lot of contractual mumbo jumbo and lingo in a freight quote. The reason being is because it creates friction, right? You don't want to create friction in the sales process. So no, I wouldn't do that. Ricky asks, once I have my authority, is there a limit to what states I can broker? I know some carriers are limited to permits, but I want to make sure it doesn't apply to me. No, as a freight broker, you are governed by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. That is a federal entity. So as a licensed freight broker, if you have an active broker authority, you can broker freight anywhere in the United States, any state. There's no limitations. But you are correct. There are certain carriers. You have interstate and intrastate carriers. Some carriers are limited to a specific state. Other carriers can cross state lines and operate in any states. Okay. But you as a broker, if you have an active carrier broker authority, you're not limited. Good question. Thanks, Ricky. Walter, how many days does an MC number need to have before carriers can factor it? There's no hard and fast number of days. I have new clients who start their brokerage and start moving freight right away, because not all carriers require factoring. And the ones that do, you can have a conversation with that factoring company and they may factor a load for you, right? So yes, at the beginning of your freight brokerage, getting credit through factoring companies can be a little bit of a challenge. Here's the good news. Here's what I'm going to tell you, okay? I'm going to share with you a resource that I think you're going to love. Hold on a minute. Let me find it. Okay, here it is. All right, so if you guys are curious how to build your credit as a freight broker quickly, if you're looking for a resource and a step-by-step guide, a friend of mine owns a factoring company, okay? He owns a company called Operify. He sells this broker credit training program for $250. But if you go through this link, because he knows you're from my community, it's absolutely free. So you go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/broker credit. Now, I've went through this course. I've looked at it. I kicked the tires. I went through every module, every lesson, everything. It's very, very good. Okay. It's very straightforward. It teaches you the ins and outs of building your credit as a new freight broker. So I think you guys will really enjoy it. Again, it's 100% free. freightbrokerbootcamp.com/broker credit. You just sign up there. They'll know you're from the Freight Broker Bootcamp community. You'll get it for free. You'll be able to get access to it. And I think it'll really help you out. So I hope that helps. Okay, Brittany says, I got an offer for 50/50 and 110 a month starting off, but I got another one for 75/25. I have to pay my own load boards after the mentorship, but they up my commission so I can pay the load boards, which is good. Okay, this is a great question. I love this question, Brittany. Here's the thing. All new agents get caught up in what the commission split is. Okay? The commission split is not the most important factor when choosing a broker. It's definitely not the most important factor. It's one of maybe the 5 most important, but it's definitely not the most important. Okay? Some of the most important things that you need to understand is how good is their credit, right? Do they have good credit? How good is their reputation? Meaning, do they have a bunch of horrible reviews online? How good is their technology? How good is their support? How many successful agents do they already have making a significant income? So those are a few things. I mean, there's tons of questions, okay, that you can ask. And let me see if I've got this. I think I've got a resource for this. I have a resource for almost everything. Okay, here it is right here. Boom. Let me pull it in here. Give me 1 second. Okay, hold on a minute. Give me 1 second. Okay, here it is. So if you are looking to become an agent, this is a document that shares with you the top 17 questions that you should ask your freight broker before signing on as an agent. Okay. Now, you talked about commission, right? So that's the free resource. It's 100% free. You can download that. You can use that to help you make a good decision. Now, the reason why I say that commission is not the most important variable that you should be focused in on is because it doesn't matter how high the commission split is if they can't support you and your opportunities are limited because of their capabilities, right? You'd be better off with somebody that was giving you 60%, but you could ramp up quickly and you could do $1 million a month in sales. Okay. Or let's call it 100,000 a month in sales as an agent, right? Then you would be at 75% if you couldn't do that, right? So it's a balancing act. What you have to understand is that most brokers that offer very high commissions, 75, 70, 80, I've even heard some stupid people say 90, okay? Most brokers that offer a higher commission do it for a reason. You know what the reason is? Because they don't have anything else to offer. That's just the reality. Their product sucks. And if their product sucks, it's going to hurt you. So I'm going to tell you right now, I don't beat this up enough. I should talk more about it. Do not focus exclusively on the commission split when looking for a brokerage to work with. Find somebody that you like. Find somebody that can answer those 17 questions really well. Even if you're taking a 5 or 10% cut over somebody else who can't answer those questions very well or who can't support you, in the long run, that partnership and that relationship is going to be better for everybody. Okay? So I hope that helps. Okay, Michael says, I don't have time to call more customers. Any tips to scale the business without calling more? So, Michael, I don't know how many customers you have. I don't know how much freight you're moving, but here's the reality. When you start up as a freight broker and you start doing heavy sales outreach to get customers, you're going to start getting a customer here and a customer there and a customer here. And eventually what's going to happen is you're going to get busy serving your customers, and it's going to take away from time prospecting. So that's kind of what you're referring to. So I'm acknowledging that that does happen. Absolutely. And at some point, where you previously were spending 90% of your time selling, you're now only spending 10% of your time selling. So how do you scale from there? Well, as a broker or as an agent, it's really simple. You hire an operations person to do the operational responsibilities like posting loads, calling drivers, negotiating with drivers, sourcing drivers, dispatching trucks, check calls. So you hire somebody and you train them to do those jobs, which are pretty simple to learn, to allow you to focus more on sales because you've already proven that you're good at sales. So you've already proven you can get customers. Whereas if you were to try to hire a salesperson at that point, right, and try to teach them the whole business, it's going to be extremely difficult. So what I say is that if you're going to do a W-2 model where you're more of an inside call center or more of a W-2, even if they're working remote, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to hire somebody operationally to buy back 10 or 15 hours of your time during the week so that they do that. And then you can reallocate that time back into sales so that you can continue to prospect. That is the tried and true way of doing it. The reason being is all the things I've already explained, plus you continue to control the customer relationships, which if you were to hire somebody and then they had some customers, they could easily be recruited away potentially to an agent program or to another W-2, right? So there's a lot of pros to it, especially for small businesses. And that's the roadmap that I would highly suggest. Lavanya. Hey, Dennis, love what you do. Usually watch your videos on replay. Love the fact here live today. Awesome. Thank you for being here. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you so much. Michael, I've answered a few questions for you. I'm going to grab a couple of other people. Rad Freight Brokerage, is there any specific instructions you would add to the rate confirmation to help avoid fraud? Well, probably there's some things that I would omit from the rate confirmation to help prevent fraud. Like I would not provide the pickup address. I would not provide the pickup numbers or the reference numbers, right? Because if they don't have those numbers, then they can't dispatch another carrier into the pickup location. You control the dispatch. So limiting the information, especially on a brand new carrier that you've never worked with before, can help prevent that, right? Controlling the dispatch is another part. You might put something on there if you want it to be redundant. You should have it in your agreement, and that should say something to the effect of carrier agrees not to not to double broker, rebroker, or assign this load to any other carrier or broker without express written permission from the company, right? So you could add that onto your rate confirmation if you want as a little bit of a threat. And what I always add to that is, if you double broker this load, you will forfeit all payment. Okay. And the reason why I put that in my agreement in the broker carrier contract is because now if they think they're not going to get paid, well, they've agreed in writing that if they did this, they're not going to get paid because I'm going to have to pay the carrier direct. Who knows what kind of a mess that's going to make. So that's my suggestion. If you wanted to add that to a rate confirmation, you could, particularly if you were concerned with new carriers, right? That might be a place to do that just to try to get them to hesitate if they were planning on rebrokering, but not sure how it would work, but it's worth a shot. Michael says, I'm good, but I want to be great on phone sales. What should I do? This may seem self-serving, but I'm going to just be totally honest with you. If you want to be great at sales, you should be a part of my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. I'm just being totally honest with you. Very few freight brokers are great at sales. Most suck. Some are okay. Some are decent, but there's a very small percentage of freight brokers or freight agents that are actually very good at sales. The difference between good and great is not a script. It's not a one-off, one-size-fits-all sales script like most brokers try to use. It's having a proven sales system, right? Having a proven sales system that allows you to fill your sales funnel effectively. It allows you to follow up and overcome objections effectively. It allows you to close. It allows you to customer retention and refer. It's a system. It's a proven system. Most freight brokers, even good ones, don't have a good sales system, right? So, again, it may sound self-promoting, but if you really want to be great at sales, you should be a part of my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. 8-week live coaching program where I become your personal sales mentor and coach, right? I'm really, really, really freaking good at sales. I'm just being honest with you. I'm really good at it. I've spent the last 30 years perfecting those skills. I've taught thousands of students how to sell. Many of them have went on to build 7- and 8-figure businesses. Okay. So, but it's a small percentage. It's not the ones who just try to learn from my videos online. Those are great. And you can go so far with that. But if you really want to deep dive and you really want to get good, then you got to invest, right? So I hope that helps. I'm scrolling for questions. Just give me 1 minute. Hold on. Okay, here's a question. How do you check credit on shippers before you do all the legwork, such as research necessary for vetting the companies? You don't. You're not going to check credit on shippers before you do sales outreach. It's not cost effective. It's not going to work. So you cannot pre-qualify all these customers based on credit. What you can do if you want to try to filter out is you can filter out startups, because most startups don't have good credit. So that if they've only been in business a year or two, that's probably somebody you want to filter out. But, you want to find companies that are doing at least 5 million in revenue up to maybe 500 million in revenue. That's kind of the sweet spot for new brokers. You're not focused on Fortune 1000 brands. You're not focused on multi-billion-dollar companies. There's an added level of complexity that's going to be very difficult for you as a new broker. So, yeah, I hope that helps. You will check credit on them after they've approved you and given you the first load, because you can give almost anybody credit on one load, right? So I know it may seem a little bit counterintuitive, but the reality is most manufacturers are going to have at least average credit that you could probably approve a $5,000 or $10,000 credit line, right? Now, if they're going to need a $100,000 credit line, well, then they're going to have good credit. But you would use something like Dun & Bradstreet or Ansonia, some third-party agency, credit agency that has gathered and aggregated all that data to allow you to make good decisions on risk management and credit. So I hope that helps. Ross asks, what are some of the best things I can offer agents to help them be successful with us? Well, it comes down to really two things: tools and training, right? Those are probably the two biggest things you can offer them. Tools, including different load boards, including different rating tools, including different lead sourcing tools, software or tools, right? Your TMS, right? The technology that you use, the tech stack that you have for moving loads and for sales is probably one of the biggest things. If you have a really good tech stack for those two things, that's going to help them a lot. The second thing is you need to train them, right? You can't assume that they're going to understand everything about your tech stack and learn it very quickly. And you can't also assume that they know everything about how to grow a successful business. Here's why: because most agents are coming from a W-2. So they may have never run a business. So coaching them up on some of the basics on how to run a business, right? Some of those are things that make you more valuable, make them more successful. Okay. So those are some things that I think, that will help them be more successful. The training part and the tools part. Those are probably the two biggest things. So I hope that helps. Good question though. I like the question. You're thinking, you're in the right direction. Roberto asks, I'm a newbie here. How much a mile do we charge the shipper? Great question. The answer is it depends. Okay. I've said this 1,000 times in the last couple of years. We do not have a flat per mile rate that we charge shippers. We do not have a flat per mile rate that we pay carriers. Rates are determined by supply and demand. Okay. The number of trucks compared to the number of loads, the ratio. If you have more loads than trucks, right? More loads than trucks, rates go up. If you have more trucks than loads, rates go down. Let me give you an example. If you were to try to move a van load from Massachusetts to Illinois, the average rate I checked, in the last couple of weeks was about $1.39. Now, some are going to run a little cheaper, some are going to run a little less expensive. That's just an average rate from the DAT. Okay, $1.39 all in from Mass to Illinois. Now for a van. Now, if you were to run that exact same load from Illinois to Mass with the same driver, with the same product, with the same everything, okay? The rate from Illinois to Mass is like $2.69 a mile. Why is that? Well, it's where I started. Supply and demand. In Illinois, there's more trucks than there are loads. So it drives price down because there's more competition for loads. But in Illinois, there's more loads than there are trucks. And so it drives prices up because there's more competition for trucks. Does that make sense? So there is no flat rate. What you need to learn to do is you need to learn how to rate. Part of that is understanding some of the rating tools. Part of that is understanding what carriers run those lanes and then sourcing and negotiating rates with them. So there's a little bit into it, but yeah, it doesn't work that way. But welcome as a newbie. Appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoy it. Hope you enjoy the live. And if you're curious about becoming a freight broker or a freight agent, right? And you're looking for, hey, listen, how do I get started? What's my first steps, right? I'm going to share with you guys. I think I have it. Oh, just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/7 steps. That is a 7-step blueprint. It's absolutely free. It will walk you through step by step by step by step by step that you need to do in order to become a freight broker. Okay. Now, it's going to, obviously you're going to need to expand on that, but it's going to give you a roadmap on how to go from no experience to brokering loads, which is where most people are at this point. So I hope that helps. Question from Chantel. I understand brokers work directly with dispatchers. Which would you say has the most profit, being a broker or being a dispatcher? Okay, so here's how brokers and dispatchers work. Brokers have direct shipper clients, manufacturers, producers, importers, exporters, shippers, right? Pepsi, US Steel, manufacturers, right? Distributors. Dispatchers are not allowed to have direct relationships with shippers. They are only able to get their loads from brokers. Now, most dispatchers charge between 5 and 10% of, it can go higher, but most are between 5 and 10% of the load value that they're dispatching for the carrier that they're working with. Most brokers are averaging 10 to 20% profit margin on top of whatever they charge, as a part of what they charge the shipper. So if the shipper is paying them $2,000 and it's a 15% margin, they're making $300 on that load. Okay. So in my opinion, freight brokerage has a much larger potential to have a much larger revenue and profit. Okay. So that's and that's just experience having seen it. I'm not saying that dispatching, you can't make money dispatching. You can, but there are a lot of limitations. There are other limitations beyond that, right? So I believe that from a profit perspective and being able to scale that business up and eventually maybe sell it someday to a larger brokerage. Let's say you build a $20 million, $50 million brokerage and you want to sell it like I did. Well, then that will be an option. Selling a dispatch company is probably not going to be nearly as likely. Okay. So those are just some of the pros and cons. Hope that helps. Ibrahim, hey, I just closed my first shipper and he's telling me to send my info regarding documents and what do I send them? Okay, well, let me just clarify really quick. I'm not trying to burst your bubble, Ibrahim, but you don't have a customer yet. You have a prospect who's interested. If they haven't given you a load and you haven't moved that load yet, that's a customer. You currently have a prospect. So from here, they're going to ask you some questions. They're going to ask you some questions about, hey, send us over, your setup pack, right? Or they're going to ask you for some rate quotes, right? Those are two things that have to happen in order for you to be able to move a load. So I'm glad you're excited, but you need to continue to sell through this process until you move that first load. So I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share with everybody. Give me 1 minute. I have a free training on this on my YouTube. Hold on. I'm going to find it. What's this? Oh, wrong account. Sorry. My bad. Give me 1 second, guys. Oh, here it is. All right. 1 second. Okay. Boop. Okay. So here is a link. Hopefully it goes through to everybody. Broker shipper setup pack. Okay. So that's the broker shipper setup pack. I just sent it to you. Okay. I think it just sent. Okay. So I just sent it. It says broker shipper setup pack. I sent it to everybody. Okay. And it has a link to the YouTube channel where you guys can access it. All right. That is going to walk you through the setup pack that you're going to need to put together to send to shippers. It typically includes some sort of verification that you have a broker authority. It's typically going to include some sort of a credit application that they're going to complete. It might have some basic information about the company, maybe 1 page about the services you offer. It might have insurance if you have different types of insurances. So those are some of the basics that'll be a part of that. But if you go through that free training, it's going to walk you through step by step. Okay? Hope that helps. Lots of good questions today. Ricky asked, when you had a brokerage, did you get a domain and website, and what did that cost you roughly? Yes, I absolutely had a website, and having a website is very inexpensive. Okay. You can get website hosting plans for under $10 a month. You should be able to set up your first broker website for maybe under $500. If you're a part of the Freight Broker Bootcamp, my startup program, either a gold or platinum member, I have actual website templates that I include in that program. Okay. They're free. They're a bonus. So they're included in the program. You can use those templates and quickly get a website up and running. You might need a little bit of tech help from somebody maybe on Fiverr or something, but yeah, no, you could absolutely do that. So it's very inexpensive, very inexpensive. Matter of fact, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to send you a training that I did. Okay. I've done trainings on everything, guys. This will really help you. Okay. So here is how to set up your website as a freight broker. Okay. Boom. So that's sending. All right. So that should help you guys. That's another YouTube video, free, absolutely free, that you guys can access how to set up your website as a freight broker. Hope that helps. All right. Good question. All right, I'm scrolling here. Let's see. Couple more questions, then I'm gonna take off. Okay. Hold on a minute. I got another one here. So there's a question from Old Young. What is the average monthly expense for operating a freight brokerage? It's impossible to give you an average. Okay. Is it a startup? Is it a company that's been in business 5 months, 5 years, 10 years? Is it a company that's doing zero in revenue? Is it someone that's doing 100 million in revenue? The operating cost is going to vary dramatically. Okay. But I think you're going to like this. I think you're going to like this training that I have trainings for everything. Okay. Cost to start and run a freight brokerage. Okay. I just put that in the comments as well. You guys can check that out. Listen, remember, when I close this out, those are going to disappear. So you should open those links if those are something you want, so you can save those links for later, because when this closes out, we lose all those chat box when I stop going live. Okay. So just so you know, so you want to make sure you open those up and try to save those resources, because they're free and they're amazing because I did them. Oh boy, I didn't knew. I have been calling for 6 months now directly to logistics managers, but I can't build a follow-up, and mostly they don't pick up calls. Okay. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Practice makes perfect is not real. Okay? Practice makes perfect is not real. It's not some immutable law. Here's the immutable law. Perfect practice, right, makes perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. It means that there's a very high likelihood, if you are struggling that badly, if you are just not getting people's attention, there's something wrong with your sales approach. There's something wrong with what you're saying or how you're saying it. Okay. And so it's very, very hard for me to teach you or to consult with you or to help you without really knowing all the nitty gritty. But here's what I'm going to tell you. The biggest struggle that most new freight brokers have is they use these generic sales scripts that they find online, or they hear somebody saying like, hey, we're a freight broker. We got trucks in your area. I wonder if we can help you out, or some facsimile of that. Or, hey, we're a freight broker. We're looking to save you some money on your freight. Can we do some quotes? Or, hey, we're a freight broker. We have access to X number of trucks. Wonder if we could help you out, right? So those are generic sales scripts. Now they're more elaborate than that, but I was being funny and short because of the format we're in. But the point is that you can't use a generic sales script and expect to make a good first impression. Here's why. Because those shippers have all heard that bullshit before. They've all heard those pitches hundreds, if not thousands of times before. So what's happening is your prospect picks up the phone, says hello, you read some garbage sales script, and what happens is they recognize the pattern, they recognize the cadence, they know that they've heard this before, and it automatically triggers a negative response. So you start getting a negative response in the first 15 seconds, which is almost impossible to recover from, even if you're a good salesperson. So the hardest part as a freight broker is getting their attention and making a good first impression. Okay? In order to do that, you have to be different. You have to sound different. That is the fundamental and core component, the core components of my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. That's what I teach. That's what I coach. That's what I mentor. I teach you how to be different, how to get their attention, how to break through the noise. Okay. And using those generic sales scripts, not going to work. Okay. I mean, even a blind squirrel will find a nut once in a while, But who wants to make 1,000 phone calls to get one customer? It's just unnecessary. You shouldn't have to make that many phone calls in order to make a good first impression and find somebody who has a need. I never made 1,000 phone calls to get a shipper ever in my entire career, even when I sucked. Okay? So, I hope some of that helps you and you can internalize some of that. I'm not mad, and I think you can still recover and I think you can still do well, but you definitely need some help. Okay? So if you or anybody else is looking for some sales coaching, training, teaching you the sales system that allowed me to do over $200 million as a freight broker, get on the wait list. It's absolutely free. You'll get notified when new spots open up. And then who knows, we'll be able to schedule a call, talk about it, maybe see if we're a good fit for each other, and we'll go from there. Okay? Hope that helps. All right. Last question. And then I'm going to wrap it up for today, and I'll try to come back in later. Let's see if I can find a good one here. Carlos has a good question. What is the logistics of a freight agent's job? Do they book loads? Okay. So a freight agent, there's two components. If you're the freight agent working under a licensed freight broker. So you have to have a contract as an independent carrier or an independent agent working under a broker. Those are typically straight commission. 50 to 70% is the standard. So you find a broker, you attach yourself to them, you partner, you operate under their broker MC number. Okay. In a partnership, it's a rev share, typically 50 to 70%. Okay. Now, as the agent, your responsibility is what I call the front end, and the broker's responsibility is the back end. So the front end is finding shippers, sourcing, rating shipments, sourcing carriers, negotiating with carriers, dispatching carriers, and solving any issues or problems from cradle to grave on that load. So it picks up and delivers on time with no issues. That is the agent's job. That's 95% of what agents do. What do brokers do? Well, brokers provide the broker authority. They provide billing to shippers. They provide payment to carriers. They provide collections. They provide financial management, credit management, marketing, technology, training, all of that. So they provide the back end. Okay, so it's a back end, front end. Does that make sense? I hope that helps. Okay, guys, got a lot of great questions here, but I'm going to wrap it up for today. I got a whole to-do list of crazy things to do. I know you do too. I'll be back next Monday, but if you guys are curious about becoming a freight broker and you're just in that early, hey, I want to learn how to become a freight broker, freight agent, you're looking for a roadmap A to Z, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. We offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. I've trained over 10,000 students in the last 15 years. And again, I built my own brokerage, done over $200 million as a freight broker. So you can check that out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com. If you haven't hit the like button yet, hit the freaking like button. I over-delivered for sure. If you didn't get value from this, good Lord. These were some good questions and I killed it. So I hope you agree. Hit the like button. We'll see you guys next Monday on the next Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Thanks all.